Okay, boys and girls, here's the story today. I saw this, and this is, one of those things. I'm wondering how come it took this long to get to that. We've heard about situations where restaurant owners, bar owners, etc., have been facing everything from Molotov cocktails being thrown, into their businesses to being robbed in broad daylight to being extorted. And it's gotten to the point where now the Corporation of Bar and Tavern and Brewery Owners here says the government has to step up and do something about this because it's out of control. Olivier Hamel is with the Corporation of Bar and Tavern Owners. He also has his own bar, by the way, called Le Patriote in Saint-Eustache, and he is on the line. Monsieur Hamel, thanks for being here this afternoon. I know we've been talking about these. It's in the news, it seems, on a regular basis every other week. Have you ever, as someone who owns a bar, seen it this bad?
Yeah, we saw that at the start of with the biker crisis in the start of 2000, and after that, there was a lot of criminality around bar that went on fires and we saw that before. But at that time, we start talking to the police officer and we start doing some pressure on the government, and they respond with the projet nocturne that will help us a lot to get through this crisis.
So that got done with, right? That we got rid of the hells for the most part. Now, it's funny. I remember the police chief when I was talking to him referring to crime now as disorganized crime as opposed to organized crime back in the day. What are you seeing now? Because it seems there are so many different groups.
Yeah, I don't know about every particular, situation or region of Quebec, but what we know is that it seems to be it seems to be spreading fast out of Montreal. There was some cases in Laval, and now this week it was in Lanaudière. There was some three restaurants that burned down. So this is getting to be a pretty big crisis around Quebec. But I don't know who's running that. But what we do know is that the police and the government needs to start doing something about it now.
What are you asking them to do? I mean, if this is not, as they say, organized crime, there's so many different groups. I understand so many young people now are being recruited online. What do you want to see happen?
Okay, in the past, what happened is that the government start talking to us first. Okay, which is not the case right now. They don't ask us what they can do, what kind of collaboration they can do with the owner of the bar and the restaurant. But so being that, okay, we started to have this with this collaboration, the projet nocturne was born, and that was so it accentuated the presence of police in the bar, and there was like a line of communication directly with the owners, so they could speak to something that they could trust, and it was a trust building situation. And right now, that's not the case. We don't have any information from the government or for the police to help us getting through this crisis.
So you want to see kind of a group come together where the bar owners are represented, the police are part of it as well. You want to begin dialogue, is what you're saying.
Yeah, this is what we need. We need to dialogue and to get the information together and to fight this crisis. We're not the police, We cannot fight against any criminal, organized or not organized, criminal. But we can, send information and collaborate with them because it's a huge crisis for the bar. It's tough on us with the achalandage of the places, and it's really hard, on our insurance. Just for my case, when the first crisis appeared 20 years ago, my insurance bills went to $7,000 to $30,000 a year.
Wow.
So right now, first of all, there's some bar owner or restaurant, they can't even put insurance on their businesses. And after that, it's very dangerous. They don't mind, a burning place where there's people living upstairs or other businesses around the bar.
Am I right in saying, I thought I read this too, you're asking as well, because you're talking about how expensive it is now for insurance, for the government to drop, you pay a tax by having a lottery machine terminal in your bar?
No, we don't pay a tax by having a lottery terminal in the bar, but we have revenue with this activity of lottery machine in our bars. And now the government right now is planning to cut our revenue by 10%, which is really huge.
Oh, I see.
It's a lot more than the 10% of profit. It's maybe 30-40% of profit in the bar. So we need this money, for the insurance. We need this money for the security, and at the same time, the government is cutting our rate. And as like Loto Québec has a really a new policy with the Loterie Vidéo, and it's serving us a lot right now. And it's putting our business, it's tough to sell, and it's we're thinking that a lot of more bars will close around Quebec because of that.
So has the government given you any indication, or Lotto given you any indication that they're open to meet with you?
No, not really. It's been a tough government for us. Right now, I don't know if our minister will change. It's pretty much actuality today.
Yeah.
But we hope, to sit down and first thing, don't go with the new policy of Loto Québec for the next month, to cut the rate. And there's a lot of issues to work with us. I think we having a bar in a community, and it's a big thing. When you're losing it, you probably won't get it anymore. So there's a lot of of different bars that are on the verge of just closing down. We saw that in Montreal. There was a big Jack Saloon owner of a restaurant bar and said, I don't want to deal with this extortion thing, and so unfortunately, the place closed for that, and we need help from the government. So.
Well, I wish you luck. I hope the government is listening. I hope a lot of Quebec is listening. I mean, for anybody, I think they make enough money without necessarily hurting bar owners. So I hope the message gets through. Monsieur Hamel, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.